Welcome back to another episode of Barbell Machas. Today we have a special guest who is no stranger to the fitness scene. His name is Dennis. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a while that your name has been on the roster of guests to invite, so I'm so glad that you actually managed to make time today. To those of you watching, if you don't know who Dennis is the program director at Good Juju Barbell Club. Okay, I've known Dennis for quite some time now. Dennis is on the podcast today to talk about fitness business, programming systems, coach development, and sustainable gym operations. Now, I know a lot of those words sort of don't fall in the category of program director because Dennis is not just the program director, he is also part owner of Good Juju Barbell Club. Okay, Dennis, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to those of the listeners that don't know who you are, some tidbits or some things that maybe I or Arvin do not know. Do you actually like Hyrox?
You know what? He's a part-time stripper.
Oh,
Yeah, I do enjoy. Okay, maybe not Hyrox itself. I enjoy the components of within Hyrox. So, because Hyrox in itself, it sucks. I mean, when I say it sucks, I mean that it's quite brutal, right? To go through that. But that's a different topic. First off, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure. Actually, it's funny how it went full circle because I remember around 2022 was it when you guys started your podcast? Was it 2020? Yeah, I've actually been an avid listener since then.
oh, thank you.
Man.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So appreciate, I love all the topics you guys have done. It's nice to have I guess, someone in the local scene to really put fitness in the spotlight, at least in the way that you guys do it. So,
Yeah.
okay, where do I start? Well, I've been a coach. Been a coach for now into about maybe 9 years. For those of you that don't know, I used to work in another fitness studio, a boutique fitness studio. And it just so happened during that time, it was around COVID. That was what, 3 years ago? I think those times are quite difficult for most people. And then there just so happened to be an opportunity for me to start my own thing. And there was actually a few options in front of me. And it just so happened that the group of colleagues I was working with at that time had pitched to me this idea of bringing what we know now as Good Juju Barbell Club to life. And then so it was a no-brainer, actually. I think that comes from having worked with people for so long. You kind of know their personality, you know their work ethic. So you know whether or not this partnership is going to work. And things just fell into place, and fast forward 3 years later and here we are. But coaching in itself has always been my, I would say, lifeblood. If I have a choice, I would stay coaching people up until maybe I'm 50 or 60, if that's what is required of me. But in this present moment, I would have to kind of take a bigger role.
It's good that you are truly passionate about your profession, and it shows. You don't really get many people that say that I want to be doing this even when I'm old and gray. So let's go to the origin story and positioning of Good Juju Barbell Club. Now, Good Juju is known as a genuinely non-intimidating safe space. And we hear a lot of this word being thrown around. Oh, it's a safe space, it's safe. But I personally think that no other gym or boutique studio really encapsulates and really personifies that particular word branding. Like, it's a safe space, right? Even if you see your colors, your logos, it's a cat. It just screams, this is a safe space to train. What did you intentionally remove from the traditional gym playbook to make that real?
Well, I think if you've been in the fitness scene for a while now, see that when you have this idea of trying to start your own gym, which I think for some reason, every coach after a while, they always have this dream, I'm going to have my own place. And what ends up happening is then you do some market research and you'll see what is working. Okay. And it just becomes more of a copy and paste.
Yep.
So we see big commercial gyms, boutique studios, the way that they market themselves, the way that they position themselves. It's a certain way. And usually, I mean, and this is a very general sort of stereotype. We got like a typical black interior within the gym. Okay, everything's all black. It's also cheaper too, by the way. Okay.
Yep, it is.
So making it very minimal, very equipment heavy. And then usually on social media, it's a lot of transformation photos. So it's very outcome driven,
Yeah.
right? Nothing wrong with that, because I think that as a brand, you want to kind of gain trust and credibility that this gym is known for being able to produce results. But when we had started the gym, when we had started Good Juju, to be very honest with you, I was not actually in charge of the branding, clearly. Okay. I had my own doubts.
Yep.
Because obviously, if you come from a fitness background and if you are a fitness professional, you naturally want to put results, outcomes at the forefront.
Yes.
It's just part of who we are. Like, that's our credibility. That's like
Correct.
your portfolio. Thankfully, I had partners that were able to kind of think outside the box. So Sarah, who was actually our head of culture and branding at that time, along with Charmaine, who is now heading the marketing department, they wanted to do something different. Thankfully, I trust them. So how we had started really with positioning ourselves was figuring out and identifying the pain points. Who is our targeted client profile? And we didn't want to just attract those that maybe perhaps are like the 5 to 10%, the ones who are very extremely motivated, the ones who want to get a six-pack abs, the ones who want to, let's say, eventually compete, let's say, for a physique or bodybuilding show, or perhaps even, let's say, powerlifting. We were thinking, what about the other 90%? Now, the other 90% of the general population, I mean, if you think about it, most of them probably will or have never really stepped foot in a gym before. And the universal pain point here is everyone who has stepped into the gym for the first time, including ourselves, we've probably already felt some sort of intimidation. We probably felt a little scared, probably felt a little lost, probably felt judged. So we locked in on that feeling, that universal feeling, and we wanted to change that, where we didn't really want people to focus on aesthetic-driven goals or outcomes, because that usually can be a byproduct of them just showing up once they're consistent, right? So how do we do that? We shifted the perspective to kind of focusing more on the process. So with that came obviously the colors, right? We had to make an identity shift and break the pattern from what we already see in the industry. It was actually quite nerve-wracking because, when you try to do something different,
Yeah.
there is no other precedent or like blueprint you can follow. You just have to kind of trust your instinct.
You are the first. You are the pioneer.
Yeah, you have to just trust that this is going to work.
Sounds like my story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was quite scary. I had my doubts, but I think there was something that I felt, I think just out of intuition, that because Sarah felt very strongly about this. And I was like, you know what? I'm on board with you. And when someone has this very strong belief, right, and ethos about the brand, it becomes very infectious. And I think right after then, everything just changed after that. We realized, you know what? Actually, people really identify with how, even with the way that in the early days of our social media, the way that we went a very visual route, right? It was very creative in a way where then also we wanted people to resonate, to feel safe. Like, okay, you know what? Yeah, like, I think there was one specific post. It was where like Sarah was in a sports bra, and then we actually showed how even as coaches, we have some body fat. That was a very vulnerable like post. But I think when people see that, they're like, actually, this feels very real. Doesn't feel very pretentious. So with that, I think then this has been at how we had pretty much moved actually in terms of our direction. When you come through the doors, you can feel that, right? Just from the people, the environment, how we carry ourselves with the content that we curate.
I think another word to describe it is very authentic, very real. Because, yeah, if people can see that, coaches or the people who create this space are just human and the same, they're more inclined to actually come to you, right?
I think everybody just wants to belong.
Yeah.
So I think if you can, yes, we're all selling the same product, but the experience is different, right? You could sell the same kind of drink, but how you package what you're trying to sell or the experience you're trying to sell to the person, that in itself becomes different. And you look at Good Juju, unlike, as you said, the traditional gyms, either really dull was really extreme in one, and Good Juju looks like someone decided to just have fun with colors.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I walk into Good Juju, that's the first vibe I got. When I walked into the gym, which was filled with bodybuilders, and I was this little 15-year-old boy who got stuck under an empty barbell.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the guy who
Yeah.
benches 140 is stuck under
Yeah.
20
Yeah,
kg
so
barbell.
that bit of experience, and it was one of those big abangs who come over and say like, let me help you with this and teach you how it's done. And I guess if more people do that, then people are not going to be so scared to walk into the gym thinking that there's a certain benchmark you have to meet before you walk into these kind of places, or people are going to look at you different just because you have a little body fat, or you're shorter than usual, or whatever it is. So I think that is a good, people are getting from Good Juju, they're probably getting a good vibe, and they come in and that sells, and people normally feel like once they're bought into the things, they feel like they accept it. There you go, your business pitch is done.
Following up from what you just said about Good Juju, I think obviously we know from your explanation that Good Juju is a place of quality, not quantity. So then the question comes like, when you decide quality over quantity, it's obviously expensive to execute. It's easier said than done, but it's expensive to execute. Where do you refuse to compromise, even when it costs time, money, or the ability to scale? What's one thing that you would say, like, no matter what, we're never going to compromise on this one particular thing?
I thought about this, and if I had to really sum it up in one word, it would just be integrity. And I think because in everything that we do, it requires you to be very honest with, is this particular approach, is this action, this is decision, does it make sense? And sometimes as a business owner, it's very easy to get lost in the numbers, right? Like, it's all about profit. It's all about revenue. Yes, for us at the top, that's what really matters. But for those at the bottom, our staff, that's not really it for them. It's too far detached. Like, so what if the company makes 2x revenue? They're not getting 2x revenue. I mean, they're not getting 2x salary, right?
Yeah.
So I think it always comes from that positioning of understanding, when I was a coach, when I was a staff, or if I am working for a company, what do I actually really value? I always look at it from that second perspective, that second layer, and it helps me to really understand what is actually important in this moment. Now, of course, there's a fine line. If we are, as a business, if you're on the side of, let's say, in this case, what we're talking about, quality, yeah, it can be very expensive, very time consuming, because who really wants to be spending, let's say, over 10,000 in terms of professional development for your staff? That's a lot of money. But I do believe that it does come back around. If your people, they see that you're willing to invest in them, you're willing to play the long game, they will actually appreciate that, and they will actually stay. In this industry, let's just talk about the service industry. The products are the people.
Yeah.
So you need to spend on your people. It's not about spending on in terms of the gym, the fancy equipments. All those are nice. There are additional pluses, but I think the main thing is, what are we doing for the people? So sometimes when it comes to like a director's meeting, right, I'm sitting down with my other business partners and we're discussing about the next steps. So numbers for sure will be in question here. And this is where sometimes, because I am involved with the daily operations, I see what's happening, I will draw that line and say, okay, guys, like, wait, this is important, but this actually should be what we focus on next, right? Because it might be a short-term loss, but it's a long-term gain. So if we play that route, actually, it comes back even better for us, because if you're able to retain good staff, and we all know how hard it is to actually hire. So if you need to go through a hiring process every single month, every quarter, you're just wasting time. That time could be spent better doing something better. In this case, thinking about creating better systems, thinking about what, I guess, other professional development is needed for your team. And so all that takes time.
So I think, like, in terms of the product being the people, which is your coaches, that's a good thing that not many gyms actually prioritize. So I think, speaking from experience, and this is just maybe a message to gym owners out there or people looking to eventually open their own gym, if you don't allocate resources and tools for your coaches, I honestly believe that you are really doing a disservice to your coaches, and you should probably not be in the fitness space or start a gym, because when you open a gym, you have to understand that a huge allocation will need to go into coach development, and thinking that you're spending on the renovation, the equipment, all these things are important per se, but they're not in the top three. I would say coaches, development coaches, invest in your coaches, because these are ultimately the people who are going to interact with the clients and members, right? They are a representation of your leadership. They're a representation of your brand. If you have to hire every single month, then something's wrong.
But okay, there's a question. If as the program director and the owner of the gym, you have to think about all these things, do you think it's a bit of a silver spoon situation here where you are doing the thinking for the coaches? A lot of the investment or the learning that has happened is purely out of own intent to become a better coach, to learn more, to understand why is this happening, how is he doing it better, what is it that he know that I don't know yet. And of course, that can happen from knowledge sharing, go and learning from someone else, getting a certification, doing your CSCS, whatever it is. But at which point are we as the heads starting to feed them instead of them putting out their own initiative to, I need to develop, because if I'm going to level up to the level of Dennis right now, like Dennis knows this much, I'm here right now. If you're going to wait for Dennis to trickle down things to me for me to learn, it's going to take forever. So at which point do you feel like, or are we spoiling our generation that's coming up by giving them the tools instead of them coming up? Like as a doctor, when I was a junior doctor, you have to put in an initiative. Show me that you're worth my money. It's not the other way around where I force you to learn just because I want you to be better so that you stay with me and make me more money.
Yep.
So where do we draw this line?
That's actually a very good question. You know, it's funny, like this conversation has come up so many times, and this might be like a side tangent, but it also shows up in the way that we in terms of parenthood now as well, right? Like we want to give back in a way where we didn't have opportunity to those same resources ourselves. So for myself, one, in terms of your attitude, which is number one for us actually, right? Your attitude, your willingness to be a team player, professionalism, all these things are actually soft skills. These things like you have to just learn on the job. You cannot find it in a textbook. For a lot of them, like I think if they just demonstrate these things where they're willing to just help out their peers, their colleagues, they're willing to just ask questions, like show the willingness to want to learn. We do have a system in place that allows them to get financial assistance or some sort of financing option when it comes to courses. And then even then, those courses, I try to make sure that have relevance to what they're going to do in terms of their career. So there is kind of some core topics, I would say, that I think most coaches should learn or should go for. These are things like nutrition, for example, programming, right? Because the principles there really carry over. They cast a huge net. So I will already lay down sort of some courses that maybe would benefit them. And it helps because like I am in that driving seat. So I know like what are some of the courses that would be beneficial rather than them just going out and then choosing. So we build those courses or certifications into their career pathway, their roadmap. So then it makes sense where, okay, if I encourage this person to want to take a course, they see the reason why, because it directly correlates to their own growth. I'm not going to tell you, you must do it. At some point, if you care about your own growth, you will do it, right? Because you see where that will potentially lead you. So I just give you this blueprint, this roadmap, and you know, the leaders that we have will have check-ins to guide and push you there. So in it itself, it's a filtering system because you can tell who's going to have that initiative or mindset to keep going. Those are the ones that we're going to obviously, you know, continue to grow and nurture. Not to say that we wouldn't care about those, but those that maybe right now are comfortable, well, you know, the cost of being comfortable is that it's just going to cost you a lot of time. So you're going to realize maybe 2 or 3 years later, like, I should have done that.
I think that was what I was struggling for a considerable time. It's like, how do I get these kind of coaches who are comfortable where they are to want to be better? But I also believe that, you know, at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure you've experienced it yourself. If a coach wants to be better, he will show some form of initiative. But if a coach just doesn't want, and this is not just the coaches, it's just the people in general. If people want to make changes to themselves and clients want to make, you can guide them as much as you want. You can tell them all the courses they can go for, A to Z. But if they don't have an innate desire to want to be better, it's quite literally like talking to a wall. They're just listening, but they're not going to act on it. And so what do you do with those coaches? Do you give them, like, say, an ultimatum? Because well, I'm pretty sure they are still very much good coaches, but you can tell that as the industry evolves, you don't want to stay a dinosaur. So how do you relay that message to them without actually, well, not making it harsh?
Well,
It's good juju. Like you can't like if it was you, you'd be like, do this or you're fired.
Yeah, but I came from that generation.
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
There
Exactly.
was no such thing as like, oh, you want to learn this, you come and stay till 1 o'clock in the morning and
Yeah.
learn how it's done. I'm not
Especially
going
with
to
the new
call
one.
you, come boy, I'm going to teach you how to do an appendicectomy. No, man, I used to park myself in there like, please, let me try to get it. Can I try? You like, no, not today.
So
I'm
to
too
find
busy.
someone like who has like something like Arvin's tenacity and willingness to learn in this day and age as a coach, it's like 1 in 1,000.
Let's talk about programming itself. Talking about programming, you got exercise selection. How do we ensure that that's what our coaches are also thinking? And how do we know that they actually have that knowledge for you to make those decisions?
I don't have an answer to that.
To which one, mine or his?
But
Okay,
well,
then.
up to his. How do we know? The thing is, I actually wouldn't know. I'm not a mind reader, but I do believe that if we equip the coaches with the right skill set, the right knowledge, and even some right courses. In this case, shout out to RTS, right? Which is actually part of our built-in learning curriculum, actually. So it is a mandatory KPI for junior coaches when they want to move up to have to go through RTS. And I always say this to the coaches taking it, which is certain courses or certain things that you guys learn, it's not as if it's going to be new information. But the benefit of that is it teaches you how to think. Sometimes there's a disconnect. I think for a lot of us, when we're at the top, right, we see one exercise, but we see, and this is the iceberg theory, we see 10 different things underneath it. So we're already considering all those possibilities. And that helps us to decide, should we do this or should we do that? But for someone starting out, a junior coach, 0 years of experience, they're not thinking that far. They're probably thinking so simple, like this one kind of makes sense because it's just a back squat, it's a compound lift. It's very simple. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've come to the point where as much as I want to give everything and explain all the nuances, the easiest way to learn is for them to do it themselves. I actually need them to fail. But what I can guarantee is that they can fail safely in this environment and they will be able to actually get better from it. It's not fail and then, oh my God, like I'm gonna get a warning letter and then that's it. So I do think that as long as this coach understands how to execute a movement correctly and is able to demonstrate a good level of safety for this client, even if it's a shit program, they'll be okay. Like I say that with a grain of salt, but even if it's shit, we look at the program like, oh my God, why would you do this? But if they execute everything correctly, they have a good eye, they're making sure like, okay, the form looks a little bit off, let's reduce the weight. I'll say that's not too bad. We don't try to feed it to them. We want them to think. So explain. Why did you choose, let's say, a leg extension before a back squat? We want to hear from you. Can you justify? What's your rationale? Because only when you can make sense of it yourself does it actually stay in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to ask him to like, do they vet? Because remember, I was doing the hypertrophy course. I get all the trainers to write me their program. I give them a situation and you write me a program. And then I get them to get up and explain to me why you wrote in a particular way. So I guess in that case, what you're doing, I think that's one good way for us to get them to start thinking. Because you're right, you can't give them everything. You can't expect for them to understand what you're understanding. But if you give them a glimpse to what you're actually thinking in your head when you are actually making that decision, and if you can't explain your own program, like what Einstein says, you can't explain it to another person, I mean, you don't understand yourself.
There you go.
I think since we're on the topic of programming, as program director, what does good programming mean in Good Juju?
Good programming for me, actually, it goes right back to how I answered Arvin is, would it be like good exercise selection? Yes. Does it mean making sure that the way that they execute the movement is correct, right? Does it mean also in terms of making sure that the volume, the intensity prescription, does it actually make logical sense? I think it's all of those things, but really for me, it's safety. I actually didn't really think, I wouldn't have thought about this in the earlier years because it was just like, okay, what is the best program? How do I go about writing a better program? When you get to a certain point, you realize, well, if I want to reproduce this, if I want, let's say, my now group of coaches to write a better program or understand what a good program is, for them, it really just comes back down to thinking. Okay, so can you justify the reason why you have this in place? And can you most importantly demonstrate it correctly? Because I do believe that along the way, things will just fall into place. And this is also because, you know, we've had the opportunity to be able to go through some trial and error with our earlier group of coaches, where we went through very intensive programming. Then I go back and I do a self-audit. And I'm like, me spending all of this time in this way, did that actually make them a better program writer? Not really, actually. Because whatever I have taught maybe within that week, they might only use 5% of that. So is that a worthwhile trade-off? No, actually. Likewise for the program design. So in that regard, I realized instead of giving them specific structures, we cover now principles. Understand the principles of what good programming looks like. So I think most of us would know, number one is adherence. You can make a client adhere to the program. That's actually not a bad program, actually. Because
The program itself could be shit.
that's what I'm
But if
saying.
if the client is doing the shitty program for months, you did a good job.
Yeah, no. For me,
Somewhat, yeah.
for me, I feel like the fallacy of perfect program probably should be trashed.
Yeah.
Because I think anybody can write a decent program, but if you can't carry out that program is not gonna mean anything. Yeah. So even like when it comes to me programming for my clients, sometimes I don't change it for 8 weeks long.
Same.
But if you're getting stronger every single week, and you're showing improvements, your technique is getting I have to say lesser to you in your execution, it means we are doing something right. As long as I think is you can justify what you're writing down there to a understandable level. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. At least you are thinking. You're starting to think. And your client seems to be not getting injured. They are consistently doing it. You're not complaining about doing it. You're progressively getting better. That's
You're winning, man. That's by my definition, not only good programming, but great programming. If it's ticking off all the boxes, you're getting close to perfect. So that brings me to my next question. What is the non-negotiable standards that you have for your coaches at Good Juju? Something that every coach must follow when it comes to programming and session delivery. I'm pretty sure safety is one.
Yep.
But give me another one. What's aside from safety?
Because we've had a few incidents, okay?
Okay.
And usually you need these things because that's how you actually grow as a
Yeah.
business. So they're good. They're painful lessons, okay? Check-ins. So we actually have a SOP that is mandatory. You need to have a check-in with your client. And the reason I
with
say,
your client, not the coaches.
well, there is for the coaches. That one is definitely a given.
Okay.
But for the clients, actually. And this actually goes back to your earlier question, which is how do you ensure the coaches...
This is actually want to improve, right?
Going back to this, the check-in SOP is because sometimes when you're teaching a physical client, we take things for granted a little bit. Oh, we're going to see them every week. Because there's this face-to-face interaction, there might be less need for us to really check in. When I say check in, it's not like the check-in that we do before the session. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, how was your day? Did you eat anything? Like,
Yeah.
that's a given already. That's what we should be doing as a coach. Now, I do find that for online coaches, they do this very well because it's remote. They cannot see the client. So it's almost mandatory to do a weekly check-in. But for the physical clients, sometimes you get a client that's been with you for so long, they just, at some point, they get so comfortable, they go through the motions. Or maybe you even go through the motions where it's just like, I'm just going to program this and they'll be okay. They're going to show up anyways. But along the way, you might realize maybe some clients, there's a mismanagement in terms of expectation. And because this has happened, we realize, why is it happening? Is it because the client's programming is not great? No, when we actually do the program audit, the programming is sound. But what we come to realize is actually because they didn't actually meet the client's expectations. Client actually still has this goal, but because there wasn't actually a space, right, for them to really, I guess, disclose that information, they just kept it to themselves. Now, you tell me like, oh yeah, you can do a check-in right before training. I don't think that's the right time. You need to have an appropriate space and location to do those check-ins. Just like for online coaches, I'm sure, Arvin, you'll dedicate time, whether it's like an online Zoom call or like through WhatsApp, there's some check-ins going on there. So you need to know like, okay, have your goals changed? Has anything changed within their life, career, schedule? Those are all things that we need to also consider, right? So for the coaches now, every 12 weeks, they need to sit down, they need to do a check-in. So that means the check-in is actually done outside of training schedule. So they need to book in a check-in time with the client. It could be just like 30 minutes. It could be within the gym itself, or they can go like to a cafe nearby and then they do the check-in. So then that way it's a proper space for both parties to be able to chat about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Every 12 weeks. So I think this next question is partly for me because I'm also starting my own place. But also I think it does help with a lot of future gym owners as well, which is the pricing and packaging, right? And when you have a very established brand and a good brand, what is your philosophy on discounting? What is your philosophy and when does it make sense? And also when does it start damaging the brand?
I don't want to say I don't believe it in it 100%, but I do think there's a fine line in allowing for that. And when I say allowing for that, it could be in like during special events or seasonal periods. I think that also as a business owner, you need to also be strategic a little bit. It's not to say that you implement discounts and discounts is going to hurt your business. How do you do it? And what's the frequency of it? Now, if you're going to be giving discounts to every client that maybe wants to negotiate this package or that package, then it's probably going to hurt the business. It's going to probably damage your reputation, your credibility, and most importantly, the value that you provide. So for me, like, and I think for Good Juju, we only do one promo a year. And that promo is just more like a annual thing where we know this is within a CNY period, actually.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of people ask along the ways, how come you don't do like discounts for senior citizens or for this, for that? And we're just like, because one, if there was enough demand, then maybe we'd consider it. But it's just like one or two, and then that's not really going to move the needle for us. But for us, we take advantage of that period. Okay, it makes sense. And because we tried it the first year, it worked well. We're not going to change, actually. All of these things actually matter a little bit more for us at the top. But for coaches, and not so much. But for clients, it's a nice little thing they look forward to. Like, okay, yeah, I know that maybe this time of the year, I can save up a little bit and I can actually take advantage of that. So I look at it as a win-win situation. But we don't go crazy with the discount, actually. So for us, we just give free sessions. I think for our 12-session package is an additional 1. 24 is an additional 2. 36 is plus 3. And then the biggest package, 72, is plus 6. So if you do the math, actually, it is cheaper per session.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's also the optics too, right? The prices didn't actually change.
Yeah.
It's just how you packaged it. Actually, I've never given a discount before. I don't really inflate it on a year-on-year basis kind of situation. But to be honest, unlike you guys, for me, coaching is really purely out of passion. I'm still doing it, keeping my pulse on something I really love and started my entire career anyway. At some point, I actually stopped coaching altogether. And why I got back to it is because I really missed it. I really miss teaching people how to exercise. It's fine to teach coaches, but if you don't do it yourself, you don't talk to people, you don't interact with these different characters, you forget how it's like to deal with people all over again. That's was happening to me when I was in the government sector as well. I started becoming very administrative. It sucked that I couldn't spend time dealing with what I actually really loved doing, which was being a doctor. Hence why I opened up business. So I think it's a very important thing to actually make sure that you keep doing what you love while you actually do the other stuff as well. But like, do you still coach clients as well?
I do, but it's been very difficult. The last few years, it's like almost every year I have to reduce my coaching hours. And I've even had to make the hard choice to push some of my clients to my junior coaches because I just cannot accommodate their frequency. That's a hard conversation to have with the client, but thankfully, they understood. But for myself, the decision here is, and I think for both of you, you guys are business owners and also practitioners in the field that you're doing right now. But at some point, it's probably going to require you guys to put on the business owner hat more than the actual coaching one. The very thing that got you into opening up this business. It's kind of funny. And it sucks too. I say that because it might actually feel like an identity loss. I mean, I don't mind sharing this with you. This happened last year. And I told you guys in the beginning that coaching is my lifeblood. If I was not a business owner, I'd be completely okay with just doing my own thing, having my own coaching business. I could coach online clients and I could just focus on my craft. That would be amazing. But then along the way, I realized if I have that type of mindset when I'm running a business, it's still putting myself first, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that we're not putting clients first, but it's still about me. So knowing that the roles that I had to wear during that time, at that time, it was technically still within head of coaching and education. So I was the head coach and also I was managing the education department. So in terms of like the in-house training, the courses, I was managing that on top of coaching. But then at some point I realized if I'm going to stay here the whole time, the people that are under me, they cannot move up. I become the bottleneck. And that is the hard truth, which is actually I realized, well, if I continue to do this, can Good Juju continue to just operate as is? Yeah, actually, it'd be perfectly fine. But along the way, what's going to happen is the people that the good coaches, right? The people that have a lot of potential, they're probably going to feel stuck and they're going to think, what's next? So for me, it was the hard call where at the expense of obviously the thing that I enjoy doing, which is to coach and to educate people, I'm going to have to delegate that to someone else. Me coaching clients, although that is my own personal pursuit and passion, I also have to sacrifice that a little bit because now I have not just only myself, I have 30 other people to take care of, to think about. And these people also have families.
Yeah.
These people also have commitments. They have responsibilities. So if I just continue to have that mindset, oh yeah, I like doing coaching, I don't want to change, the business is actually going to suffer. So I had to actually let go of those things. It was a bit tough, and I actually shared this with my business partners that I was in a grieving stage. It was actually a little bit hard for me to accept. I'm like, why do I have to do this? You get into this mode where it's like, why me? So I allowed myself some time to grieve, okay, in my own way, which is just to complain.
Yeah.
it's just to complain, right?
Yeah.
But then I fast forward a year later. It was probably the best thing that I have done because I could see where now the people that had potential, they could really step into the shoes that I was wearing. Then I could take a greater role for the company and move things forward. It's a hard shift, actually. So I don't know if it will ever come, to that point for you guys, but it did for me.
You're still teaching, just not teaching
Not as
clients.
much.
You're teaching, you were teaching those clients. You've not completely stopped teaching.
Yeah.
But to go back to what you said just now, the grieving process, I think it's very normal. Like you put it so well, like it's your identity. You've been doing it for the better part of a decade, and to be told basically, okay, you have a bigger responsibility, something that's bigger than you for the company, but all you hear is that you can't coach anymore. You need to drop some clients. You need to do this and do this, and then that's all you're hearing. But like you said, you have your time to grieve, and you come to the realization because you see the fruits of your labor. The coaches under you are now becoming somewhat you. Like a parent watching a kid grow. I'm not comparing that to parenting, but
How dare you?
but you see this coach that you took in that didn't know anything, that couldn't differentiate between the right programming, good programming, bad programming, shit programming,
Yeah.
and suddenly he's head of programming or coaching the coaches, helping in some capacity, and suddenly it's not too bad. Suddenly, like you feel like, oh, like you said, it's the best feeling in the world watching these little coaches become who they thought they'd be, who you thought they'd be. And yeah, so I think I hope, I'm actually looking forward to that point where I too would eventually step away and have someone take my place. Should that time come, or when that time comes, I'll probably reach out, hey,
Yeah,
going through the same thing.
it has happened.
I would also
Is
say,
it normal to cry this long?
I would also just say maybe you may not step away completely. Like I think one thing about running a business, and if you guys see a lot of the entrepreneurs, the business owners that sell their service to other business owners, a lot of it is like, oh, you guys, the reason why your business stuck because you're not delegating. Delegation only works if there's a clear plan. There's a system in place and you're very clear about where you're going to go to. Because if you just suddenly promote someone up and you put them in that position, it could sometimes backfire, right? Because now you're just going to throw all of this responsibility on them in hopes that you have your time back. That is, I would say, very far from the truth, actually. I'm still very hands-on, and even in the early stages, actually. So even like now, June, who is the head of coaching education, when we had started, he was still technically an educator, a junior educator that I was mentoring. But a lot of the things that we were doing, the systems that we have in place, for example, when we onboard a new coach, he would be right by my side to see how things work. I would still lead, so he sees. And then it's like every time we do it, I give a little bit more and a little bit more until he tells me. And when I ask him, can you do this yourself? Yes, it's yours. And that gives me the peace of mind that, okay, I don't have to micromanage. I don't have to worry that quality in how he's delivering the onboarding is going to drop, because the trust is built and the system is already built. A lot of this, like, suddenly we drop off. I don't think that really happens much. I think we're still going to be very much in touch with our people. It's just that we're just a little farther back. The viewpoint is much higher, not as close.
Yeah, I think like you are gonna step away, but at the same time you want to make sure that, okay, you still want to oversee, not like an overbearing parent, but just enough to know that, okay, this person definitely got it. Okay, so we're coming to the end. We're gonna do a rapid fire question. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay.
Okay.
Biggest myth gym owners believe about scaling.
Growth.
What does that mean, growth?
Because, a lot
Oh,
of
you think
times...
that scaling is equivalent to growth?
Yes, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, because you guys have expanded, but you didn't open another, you just make it bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have loved to actually deep more into that, but I feel like this would have become like episode 1, 2, 3. Okay, next one. If you could track only one metric in your business, what would it be?
Retention,
Most underrated skill in gym leadership.
communication.
Okay, if you open Good Juju 4.0 tomorrow, what would you do differently on day one?
Finance and marketing. I can share a little bit on this.
Okay.
Which is, I only realize now just how important it is to have a really solid finance department and
Okay.
marketing department. I think a lot of times as a business owner, we focus a lot on the product, but the people behind the scenes on keep making sure that your day to day is running smoothly, the margins are okay, because that's what keeps the business alive. That's number one. And then how do you deliver the product to the people? Then even if you sell your product very cheap, but you actually don't know your margins, you don't know your own P&Ls, I think that's eventually it'll come back to bite you in the ass. Revamping right now as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Yeah,
So-
I think that's very true. But I had my wife for that.
lucky you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis, for joining us today. It's been a very insightful episode. I think not just for the listeners out there, but for me, myself, was also going to open my own place eventually. Hopefully, the renovation finishes. I am definitely going to take a lot of what you said and apply it to my own space as well. Some of the questions here were actually something I personally also had wanted to ask you, which I also felt maybe the listeners would also want to hear from you. And the fact that you were so open and willing to share has been a huge contribution, not just to this episode, but to the fitness industry in general. So thank you so much, Dennis, for coming
Thank you
on.
guys. Thank you.
man.
Appreciate it.
So to those of you who are watching, this episode is to give gym owners, head coaches, and fitness professionals real insight into building a high quality, sustainable training business. Thank you for watching.